Welcome to the Cinematography Legends podcast. Today's guest, come on, I'm so excited. But first, let's talk about the support team. That's Roscoe Labs. If you need anything production based, if you need gobos or you need LED lighting through DMG Lumiere, if you need your paints, fog machines, anything that's really going to help your production, bring it to another level, go to Roscoe. That's us.roscoe.com. Go there, check out what they have to offer. They have backdrops, amazing backdrops. You make your production value go through the roof. So go to Roscoe, check them out. Also, Canon. What doesn't Canon do, right? From point and shoots all the way to full-blown production cinema cameras. They have everything you need. So I look at it this way, like get your kid a Canon, get him something nice when he's a little kid. He can go through the rest of his life using Canon lenses and their digital SLRs, all the way to their cine cameras. So Canon is where you need to go. And that is shop.usa.canon.com. So our guest today, what can we say about our guest today? Love this guy. I consider him a dear, dear friend. Dare I say a brother from another mother. He has done so much in the business, and that's why I'm excited to talk to him today. He's an author. He's a producer. He's a director. He was a PA. We're going to talk about that too. He's author of this wonderful book here, okay? What You Don't Learn in Film School. Now, the thing about this book is just the fact on how to deal with your media is a reason to buy this book. And the reason I love this book is everybody's done a film school book, you know, but Shane, dare I say, I haven't even brought you on the show yet, but Shane's book, it's just, you feel like you're talking to a friend about the business. It's not a book where you're going to, I got to do this or don't do this or whatever. So the beautiful part about Shane's book is it's like you're talking to a friend. So go pick it up. What You Don't Learn in Film School. It looks like this. And it'll fast track you and it'll answer a lot of questions. So this guy here won an Emmy at 16 years old. This is incredible. We're going to talk to him if that's a record or not. He also had 13 Emmy wins over 6 years. How has this happened, right? The author of the book, which is amazing. He had a #1 box office hit, little small picture called The Gridiron Gang that he produced. So let's bring on a man I love from my heart. Let's bring on Shane Stanley is here.
Hey,
hello,
John.
sir.
Great to see you, my brother from another mother. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
How's it going? How you been?
I've been good. I just want to say for the record, though, the work we did, my father and I got the 13 Emmy wins with 33 noms. I only got 2 statues over that period, so I don't want to.
That's okay. But you got one at 16 years old.
I did. Guilty. Yeah.
Are you the youngest ever to win an Emmy?
At the time, I know I was. They're giving Emmys out like candy now, it seems. Anybody who's got a YouTube show or a daytime thing. I don't know. No disrespect to the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. It's just things have changed since I won in 1988. What I do know is I won it not as an on-camera personality. I won him as, camera, doing production and all that. So I knew at the time I was definitely the youngest to ever win an Emmy for production work. I think it still stands. I believe it does. I think some kids have won Emmys for being awesome actors, but I don't think for camera production or editing or anything like that.
That's awesome. So we got to mention your dad. I love him. We did a great movie, us together. We did Break Even, which is coming out soon. And your dad would give me these little bits during that thing. And I was like, God, he's so cool. I want to talk about him because I love him. He's awesome. So I'm standing there in this field doing the action sequences for your Break Even movie. And he comes up and he looks at me and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it a little bit, sweating. And he goes, do you think you could ever tell the story without sound? And I look at him, I go, absolutely, sir. And that little bit that he taught me, like right there in that one spot, I always bring with me, and it's awesome. And he's iconic, man. I mean, High Station Zebra was your dad. Like, that's no joke with Rock Hudson. MGM contracted guy. This is incredible. So Tell me about your dad inspiring you, because I don't want to go a show without talking about it, because he's awesome.
God
He
love
had you acting at how old? How old was your first acting gig?
Well, my first acting gig actually was 9 months old. I was born June of 71. And I think around May of that year, a new company had started, some of you may have heard of, called Century 21 that same year. I think March or May of that year, Century 21 was hatched. And about 6 or 9 months after I was born, they started doing commercials. And a producer friend came to my dad, who was a successful actor. You know, he wasn't a household name, but he was a blue collar actor. He co-starred with Rock Hudson and Ice Station Zebra. He'd done a ton of Mannix, Mod Squad. He was under contract with MGM and Aaron Spelling Productions at the time. And so the guy came to my dad and said, you know, we're trying to find these mild-mannered babies. You know, they cry, they whine, they sleep. And, you know, I for some reason was a good baby. And so my dad said, well, why don't you use Shane? So the next thing you knew, I was in this national commercial before I was old enough to stand upright. And that started a young acting career. And then right after that, my father started getting contracts with Encyclopedia Britannica, McDonald's, as I became 6, 7, 8 for commercials, and inventing of the Happy Meal, which he was very involved with. And before I was like 12 years old, I'd probably done already 100 shows, commercials with June Lockhart, David Arkin, Lloyd Haynes from Room 222, Ron Masak. Wow. And they were also a lot of the mandated shows that, you remember when we were kids, you'd go into an assembly in the auditorium and they'd load the 16 millimeter projector and you'd all watch a Burns and Poisons, you know, don't stick your finger in the socket, look both ways when you walk across the street, wear a seatbelt. I was that kid in all those movies. So every time school would have an assembly, I was in all the movies that they would see.
Wow. And you saw your stuff. Did you sit and watch your stuff? Like,
oh, I had to. I mean, it was like I used to tell the people that were running the projector, my principal, hey, you know, I've seen this 47 times. I actually helped cut it, or, you know, I'm in it, and sit down, shut up. You know, nobody believed me. And then it would air and the whole school would laugh.
Wow.
You know, all 500 kids. And that's how it started. And then I was in Whitney and the Robot with David Arkin. I did that for a while. Which was a Saturday morning special, I think, on ABC. And that kind of kicked me off in a different direction. And I learned young, John, that I didn't enjoy acting. I didn't like being away from my friends. I didn't like not having anything to do, because kids weren't used a lot back then. And they are more now. I think they're a lot more advanced. But, you know, you'd show up on a set, they put you in a room or a trailer, and you'd sit, and then 4 or 5 hours later, they come and get you to walk by or hold your mom's hand and say one line, and you go home.
Wow.
I just didn't want to spend my days. I was like you. I was into BMX and riding dirt bikes, playing drums, and it just wasn't for me.
That's so. But you also started editing very young, right?
Well, yeah. My dad, kind of going back into his life, he became a successful actor. Frank Sinatra got him in the industry, of all people. Von Ryan's Express was my dad's first walk-on because of Frank. It was his movie. And went from there and grew very fast. Vincent Chase through the new talent program at MGM. So my dad was acting all the time, had a lot of great connections. And when he was doing Ice Station Zebra, him and John Sturgis, the director, became very close. And during that time, my father fell in love with directing and storytelling with a camera. And just anytime he wasn't in front of the camera, he was on John Sturgis' hip, watching the monitor, talking, learning with him. And so he went out and bought a Moviola, which is, for those who don't know, it's an old school machine. You should Google image Moviola. They were always green, lots of reels, film. You'd have to sync sound to picture, and you had a little monitor about this big. You'd stick your head in, and Dad had a flatbed, which is kind of how you'd splice films and make them and get them ready for the Moviola. And so I learned that at a very young age. I was fascinated with the Moviola. And the flatbeds and the negative cutting. So I actually learned that before I was 7 years old. I was running a Moviola and a flatbed, and Dad had a couple of RE16 cams laying around. So he always would let me go out and fiddle with that and learn how to shoot.
That's so cool. I got started when I was racing BMX. When it was winter, we would watch films, 8mm films of what I shot during the summer, so we could watch ourselves jumping. And that's how I got into it. It's similar. You had 216s laying around. I mean, that's so cool. I wish you still did. I'd come over and we could shoot them. But that sounds cool. But so I have a thing here. I looked up that you were PAing. This is very fascinating. You PA'd on Seinfeld, right?
Yeah. I
That's
did.
so
I,
cool.
I worked for, it's funny, I actually worked for Castle Rock, my father's former assistant. Now, I had already won 2 Emmys and personally been nominated for 4 Emmys before 1991. And then I decided I really wanted to be into this filmmaking thing. I was struggling between wanting to race dirt bikes and be a drummer. And finally you wake up and you realize you have bills and responsibilities and rent, and you have an end with the film industry. You have a reputation. You can go out and get work. So I had said to my dad, hey, all right, I'm ready to take this seriously now, let's go to work. And he laughed at me and he said, well, first and foremost, edit base down there, spend 5 years there before we talk, and good luck, go get a job. Let me know how that works out, because you need to go work for the real world. So he had an assistant who I'm so very close with, Janet Stone. Janet left him because she got to go work with Alan Zwabel and Larry David over at Castle Rock. So I called Janet and said, hey, I need a job. I want to start working for the real world, get out of, my dad's umbrella and try to expand my horizons. So she made one phone call. I was working for Castle Rock the next day, which obviously had Seinfeld. Oh. I think they had Sequest, All American Girl. I was working on 5 different sitcoms. I was on Roseanne. I was thrown around like a piece of meat and treated even worse.
Well, yeah, but so people that want to get into the industry, this is why I always say, I always tell people to get your book is you went out and you called people. You had a connection with your dad, but you also had to do all that legwork, because that's what your dad said, go out and get your real jobs. So you had all these talents, you had these Emmys, but you still did a PA route. So this is a great thing to tell people. Even if you have these talents, like I'm a DP at heart, but I shot stills for you on Break Even. Like, you have to do a bunch of things, especially. What do you think about today's day and age with kids? Shouldn't they be like absorbing all the different departments instead of focusing on one? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, I do a lot of lectures and workshops at film schools, and obviously since COVID's hit, it's been Zoom classes. And I was very fortunate with the community colleges and some of the universities that they allowed me to actually do sometimes 3 to 5 classes a week during COVID. And if you've read my book, what I really preach is you got to learn every facet of filmmaking. It's when I go teach in front of 300 kids at a workshop, I say, how many want to be directors? All the hands go up. How many want to write? They all go up. How many want to produce? They all go up. How many of you guys want to be a PA? Nothing, crickets, right? How many of you guys want to be a camera operator? No offense, maybe 1 or 2 hands. And what I try to tell them is, look, there's 300 of you in this room. You all want to do the same job, but there's hundreds of jobs in our industry. Now you have a choice. While you're waiting for your ship to come in, do you want to be on a film set, making connections, meeting guys like John, meeting guys like me or my dad that can open up new opportunity, and you can make a living doing what you like and being around what you love? Or do you want to go drive for Uber? Do you want to go flip burgers? You want to throw the LA Times? And the problem is, 86%, and I'm being very kind, 86% of the youngsters that leave film school will never earn a dime in our industry. Yet they'll spend 6 figures a year getting these degrees. It's all BS, hope and dreams, lotto type, things that they're preying on. And one thing that I've tried to do over the years is try to impact in the schools is they need a mentorship program. They need to put in some after-up programs, because once the kids leave the nest and go into the real world, they've got tuition bills due, they've got rent, car payment, and all the other things that they've amassed during their college years. And a lot of parents aren't too happy to keep floating that. They go out and get jobs. I know a lot of SC film school grads that are $300,000 in debt that have not worked one day on a film set 3 years after graduation. They are literally driving Uber. They're nannies and babysitters. They're housekeepers. Good, talented young kids that just didn't have anybody to reach out to, let alone SC hasn't put them in any kind of mentorship program. So what I always say is call everybody you know, make every connection you can, be kind to all those in your film school, and learn every facet of the industry. Neil Moritz, God bless him, who, produces Fast and the Furious and SWAT, and we did Gridiron Gang with. I knew Neil from 100 years ago, when Neil was starting to take his place in the industry's elite. I took him to lunch and I said, Neil, I want to be a producer. I want to work. I want to assure myself a solid earner. I don't want to be rich and famous. I just want to be a steady earner in this business, so I'm not doing other jobs. He walked out, came back and threw me a budget that was about 70 pages long. It was a $100 million feature film he was doing. He said, take that with you, learn every job that's a line item in that budget. Go out and grip one day, go out and gaff, go out and serve crafty, go out and clean a latrine, do transpo, do loading, do dolly. And he said, if you do that, two things will happen. Number one, you will show everybody that you're able to do a lot. So when somebody needs a gaffer or a loader or somebody, they'll call you, you're a good guy. But he said, more importantly, when you go to produce and own your own company one day, there's not one job that you were hiring for that you don't know the ins and outs of. He said, that's one thing I never did. He said, you will be able to hire somebody, know what's a fair rate, know what the job entails, and nobody can snow you. Nobody's going to be able to snow you. And it's made me, successful as a producer, as a filmmaker, because I'm aware of what the nuts and bolts from concept to delivery of making a film is. And there's not a job I haven't done.
And don't you feel too with YouTube and a lot of stuff like that, people are taking it from script to editing themselves. Like there's so many people you have to, with this show, similar, I have to do the same thing. I have to go through all the processes of it. You've done so much. You've produced, you've directed, you've shot camera, you're an author. What do you think? Do you have something that you're really drawn to, or do you still like going through the whole gamut, grabbing a camera once in a while, producing, directing? What do you like?
Well, producing comes supernatural to me. Where I get myself in trouble time and time again, and as you've read in the book, every time I'm in pre-production, I swear this will be the last time I do this, but I always sign up again. And as we talked about before the show, we'll be working together again soon, it looks like, before the end of this crazy year. Producing comes natural for me. I love the stress that comes with it. I feed off of it as much as it makes me lose my hair, turn gray, or lose 50 pounds during pre-production. But then I can't wait to get on set, show up at a location and wonder what's going to happen. I always hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and expect the unexpected. I love getting into it with my actors. I love disagreements with my actors. I love when they challenge me, and I love challenging them. I love when a good DP and I are able to collaborate, or a great camera operator and I are able to collaborate, and we talk about justifiable moves, rack focus, tilt ups, and pan with the actions, and why you did or didn't go with it, and how we're able to collaborate and make some special magic on screen. It's a whole process. And then when the post-production happens, I always try to stay away and say, God, I got to get somebody else to cut the film. I hate cutting. I don't do it anymore. And then I always end up cutting. You
actually cut a music video that I did with Sean Frederick. We did, I loved that. One of my favorite things I ever did. And you actually had a hand in that too.
Yeah, Sean, who co-produced Break Even with us, I've known Sean for 25 years. He's worked on a bunch of stuff with me, some music videos for Storyside B and Vixen, and which you shot, you DP'd that. And Sean called me one day and said, hey, I've got a music video and I need an editor. And I was like, well, I just locked picture, I think, on Break Even. I was literally waiting for like 3 or 4 weeks for what was next on that. And I was like, dude, let's jump, let's go. I mean, I asked a lot of people to come on and support and help me, and I never say no when I can also. And I think that's going back to what you said about today's generation. When you reach out to youngsters and say, I got a project I want you to work on, the first thing they ask is, what's the pay? What's my IMDb credit? They don't say, great, how can I help? That mentality has been thrown out.
Well, it was funny when I was working on it's Ghost by Savannah Young, and when we were doing it, as a DP, you always want to collaborate with the editor. It just makes the most sense. So I didn't know who was going to cut it, and then he said Shane's going to cut it. I go, oh hell yeah, because it was so cool. That. So that was one of my all-time favorite music videos to do. With the Vixen one that we did was amazing.
That was fun.
To know that whole camera and DP collaboration with the editor is a whole nother animal. But it was cool that Sean had said it was you. I was like, oh, perfect. And then when I saw what you did, I was like, that's so cool.
I hope you liked it. Thank you.
Oh, I did. It was amazing. So it actually did pretty well. In some of the, we went to some of the festivals. It did real well. So
you guys did a great job.
Yeah, of course, because you're the man. But you've also produced a #1 box office hit. So it seems to me like this always blows my mind. Like you were PA on Seinfeld, right? And then you had produced a #1 box office hit. Like people, like you said, people need to just be nice, just be kind to people. Because if someone gave you an attitude as a PA, you're going to remember that guy was mean to me. And you went all the way to produce a #1 box office hit with Gridiron Gang with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So like, you've really gone through this whole thing, and that's why I wanted to have you on it. Besides the cinematography you did, you've done all these other things, which is really cool. And I want to show the diversity, and I want to show people and young filmmakers like the possibilities in the business. And I love the fact that you're so brutally honest sometimes. You're like, look, you're going to spend 300 G's before you even get one gig. That might happen too. But like you said, it's the connections, it's going to the events, just being cool. Because you're one of the coolest people I know. So I believe that helps. And it's just as easy to be nice as it is to be mean. So when you're on set, you don't have to be mean. I was standing in the desert once again on break even, lining up a shot for the action sequence. You'll run by, and I go, and I'm like, oh, there goes Shane. He's got to be busy. He's got to be going crazy, right? You stop and you go, hey, John, do you need a drink? Do you need a water? In my head, I go, what the hell does he care if I'm thirsty or not? He's got so much going on. And this was late in the shoot. This was day, I don't know, 20 of whatever you did. I go, why does it matter to him if I'm thirsty or not? But it did. And
I think out of you if you're hydrated. You got to hydrate. I don't need you falling over behind the camera. You're a baller.
What's funny is it's the details. And I want this show to be educational. I also want this show to look back and give respect to people that paid their dues. But details. If you're directing and your wheels are spinning and you walk by and you wonder if the camera guy has water, that's some high level stuff right there. I want to thank you for that again. Seriously.
Well, it's funny, if I could go back to what you touched on a minute ago, is like when I was PAing, there's a really wonderful actor who everybody knows. He co-starred on Ellen's show when she had her sitcom and Showgirls and everything else. Patrick Bristow, who's a really wonderful actor. I highly recommend people look him up. You'll know him immediately. I was a PA on Seinfeld. And I remember having my hands full, needing to get into the 447 building, which had a soundstage attached. I think it was 23. If you go to Universal, all that's still there. And we were, Seinfeld was shot over at CBS. We were walking in. There was some situation with Castle where they had people over there. And I was walking in and I needed help. And I asked this big, gruff guy, who of course was a Teamster. I said, hey, can you get that door for me or hold one of these so I can get the door? And he looked at me and said, that ain't my union. And he just kept walking. And then Patrick Bristow was talking to Wayne Knight from Jurassic Park, who played Newman. And Patrick ran over and opened the door for me and helped me with the cables. And he said, oh my God, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. And I said, thanks. Well, fast forward, when I started producing and getting in the position of hiring and casting actors where I could make decisions on my own, Patrick was one of the first guys I called. I know John Singleton was a PA on an NWA video, and it was Ice Cube who was nice to him when nobody else was. That's why when John Singleton made Boys in the Hood, he said, I wrote this for Doughboy. This part of Doughboy is for Ice Cube, and that's who's playing the part. And that goes such a long way. I remember, it's funny. I remember during a strike one year driving a vitamin water truck during a big strike in 2008 when we all didn't work. And there was no work and everything I had shut down. And this was after Gridiron Gang. I mean, I already had a #1 box office hit or maybe I think I did at that point. It could have been a strike before. And I remember there's this one guy who was just so mean to me. He was my boss, called me every word in the book and treated me like crap. And then found out Gridiron came around and, he was my new best friend because he was a struggling actor. And needless to say, I didn't bring him on. But I find people show their true colors. And I just say, being nice goes a long way. It's easy to be mean. It's easy to be short with people. And I think the most important thing, and I'm not perfect, I have had my share of being short and snappy and mean with people or disrespectful or rude. We all have our days. But I always try to make a point to try to go back and make it right. And I think if you can do that, we're all human. John, there's times you've worked and responded to people that you wish you didn't do it a certain way, and I know I have, and I just try to go out of my way and say, hey, I was out of line, forgive me, man. I'll do my best not to let that happen again.
I did a comedy pilot. Kevin Nealon was on it. And in the morning, someone had always said to me, remember names, just remember names. And whoever told me that, thank you. And I always do. So I met Kevin early morning. And, he said, I'm Kevin Nealon. Thank you. So, I'm here for you. I was camera opping that day. So we go through the whole day. He's running on the beach. Actually, the funny thing is airplane's going over, and I look at the sound guy, and he looks at me like we should cut, right? This is the sound of the airplane. he uses it in the middle of he goes, come on, this is my training partner. Jose is up there in the plane. Come on. And he uses the plane as part of the thing. I'm like, he's a genius, right? So all this goes on. It's a lot went on. Later that night, we're grabbing something to eat. He goes, hey, John, tell me about it. And I go, what? I told you my name at 8:15 this morning. It's now 6:07. You just randomly out of nowhere, you're like, hey, John, I have a question. And I was like, whoa, that's what I'm saying. It's the details. And I see the details in you. And I want to let people know that, man, those details sometimes might work out better than those hundreds of thousands that you spent, right? I mean, you wrote a wonderful book on this, but the details and just being nice to people, as you've proven and I've seen, it's paramount to anything that you would pay for, I believe.
Well, thanks. That means a lot. I just think, it's nice to be nice. People treat people the way you want to be treated. And those are also very cliche things to say, but, and I appreciate the kudos on the book. I'm very proud of it. And the book kind of came by accident. I was writing a blog for an organization in Colorado that was getting good responses, and they weren't an industry blog. They were a self-help blog with everything from better banking to being nice to your wife to cleaning your shoes to film. And they had me blogging once a week about something, 300 words or less. And one of the heads of the company called one day and said, you should write a book. And we're getting good responses to your blogs, and you should think about writing a book and applying your style to it. So I'll never forget, about 2 years ago, I took October 15th through November 17th and wrote those 4 weeks, but I took a week off, and I wrote the 200 pages of the book, and then sent it to a wonderful editor they aligned me with, Marissa Foglia, who deserves a lot of credit. She didn't get credit where it was due, and made me sound sane and somewhat coherent. And then the book kind of took off, and it does well. It's become mandated reading with some institutions around the country. I've been blacklisted from a lot of places I used to speak and talk to. I think the title turned a lot of the schools or the institutions off, which is too bad, because I am all for film school if especially if you don't have the opportunities or the connections or anybody in your life teaching you. There was a lot of people that get off a boat, as they say, or a bus from Iowa and come to California or New York to learn the craft that know nothing more than just, I'm a fan of movies and television. They need to learn that somewhere. I'm not a fan of places that charge people six figures to learn the history of French noir or all that crap. I think there's a balance, but the business of the business, film school does not teach you. They don't teach you distribution. They don't teach you what to do once you have a script and how to get it financed, or how to select a crew, how to cast, how to deal with contracts. I mean, I do everything in it, from concept to delivery to even raising your own capital for an independent film is in there. And I'm not against film schools at all. In fact, a lot of them have figured that out and have embraced me. As a matter of fact, I'm speaking for Loyola Marymount tonight. I mean, but there are a lot of them that have completely abolished my approach because they feel threatened, which they shouldn't. But that's fine.
So what would you, if you had your own film school, it would be cool. What would you do differently? What classes would you, because I think in this episode is great because we can kind of give people a little fast track if we could. What would you do as far as your curriculum that's not being done now? You said distribution's not talked about. In the Shane Stanley Film School, tell me what you would do for a curriculum.
Well, the first thing that I would do is I would, horrible example, when I took junior high school marching band, our teacher, Mr. Leff, we had 118 kids in our class, and he had 6 classes a day. He would get with every kid on the first day of school and meet with them individually and say, what instrument do you want to play? Why? What do you hope to get out of this class? Where do you see this working in your future? And this is when we were in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I mean, we were kids.
Yeah, but you were a veteran actor at that point.
Oh, hell, I was old salt, I'll let you know. I'll play drums. But I thought that approach is something that, 40 years later, I still remember. And I think a lot of times when I get with a lot of the students, we have a lot of interns and a lot of young kids out of film school I try to bring onto our films, as you know, as PAs or assistants or second seconds or second ACs. And I love to talk to them and find out what it is they want. And it's always amazing. They always wow me with their answers. Like, I don't know if you remember, we had a young guy, Brian Lopez, on our show. He was the hardest working kid there, first one there, last to go, never had to ask him anything. Every time he turned around, he was working. He was either helping guys like you in the camera department, he was helping unload a grip truck, he was cleaning up trash, he was helping hair and makeup, putting away wardrobe. One night we wrapped at 2:00 in the morning and I saw him out there cleaning up trash. I went out and helped him. And I said, Brian, what do you want to do when this is all, said and done? He said, I want to be an editor. My first thought was, best place to learn filmmaking. But then I thought, God, what a waste. This guy is so needed on a set. But it doesn't matter what I think. It's, it's where he wants to go find his place. And he said, I just wanted to get on a set to meet you and work with you. He goes, I know you come from the editorial background and I wanted to pick your brain. And him and I became friends. And he wanted to see how the shooting of a movie was. He thought any editor should visit a set and see the nuts and bolts, so he knew when he got the dailies what he was dealing with. I thought that was smart. That was forward thinking. And he just, he went to CSUN, or I think he went to Pierce College. And my point is that I would make sure that regardless of what somebody wants to do, they learn every facet. I'm a big fan of I've actually become a bigger fan of the community colleges than I am the universities. And the reason is because those students are usually looking for a second career, looking for a second chance. They're taking a bus or a skateboard or an Uber to school. They don't have the financial backing of parents or scholarships, and they've got to make it work. And they feel that ticking time bomb that a lot of these 18, 19, and 20-year-olds don't. And Chris Rossiter, who is a cinematography teacher, professor at LACC, Los Angeles Community College, he is one of two in the country that actually has a whole part of his semester is grip and electric. And he does that. So yeah, we get it. You all want to learn to shoot and you all ultimately want to be a director, but let's have a career in this industry. Let's teach you how to grip. Let's teach you how to swing. Let's teach you how to, load. They work on everything. He gets every camera known to man, from DSLRs to the new Red 8K, whatever, helium, and ARRIs and film cams, and Canon's a big supporter, of course. And he teaches these kids everything about these cameras, but he also makes sure they understand about a 5-ton grip truck, a 1-ton grip truck, a van, a trailer, how to hang green screen, how to do this, how to run a shot maker crane. So these guys can actually work. And that's the one thing I would do. I would implement soup to nuts. I don't want somebody just to think they're going to learn writing, because the chances of you making a living as a writer are slim to none. What is it? 85% of WGA writers who cross over and become union members never get another WGA gig again, and they're not really allowed to work again. 95% of the Screen Actors Guild are unemployed at all times. The PGA is just as bad. The DGA isn't too much better. And I just think if people have more skill sets to work with, is like when Neil gave me that budget, learn it from the top down so you can make a living and become a steady earner in our industry. It's only going to help you be better and ultimately achieve your goals so you can stay in it. So that would be my thing, is just make sure everybody learns everything they can.
So you'd have a semester specifically for each individual thing.
You got 4 years of school. You're going to have semester. I would break the quarters up, and okay, you're going to learn proper set etiquette. You're going to learn conceptual writing. You're going to learn how to execute, concept to delivery. Let's cast. Let's go over contracts. Let's talk about financing. Let's talk about distribution. Let's talk about how to deal with agencies, how to deal with actors, how to deal with crew. Casting a crew is just as important as casting a film. And people don't realize that. And how do you raise money? Raising money is not easy, but it's not hard either. It's people will work with you because they like you. They will want to support you because they trust you and they capture the vision of your dreams. You don't have to know people with deep pockets to get financing. The first feature film I ever did was only $15,000, $10,000. I mean, it's, you don't need millions of dollars to make a movie. And that film starred Sean Young, which, good, bad, or indifferent, it's still somebody who co-starred in Blade Runner and
Gary Busey. Wasn't Gary Busey in that one too?
No, he was in a short I did called The Side for Sore Eyes. But yeah, okay. But my first full-length feature was with Sean Young. That was a $10,000 movie.
Yeah.
Courtney Gaines and Ron Masak and Jason Pace. And I mean, faces that you recognize. It's like, oh my God, there was no next door neighbor or girlfriend starring in the movie because I didn't get a good cast. I mean, you don't need big dollars to make a movie.
And I think too, it's a good thing to know all the departments so you can, I mean, the best thing I did to be a cinematographer and a DP was to sit in editing. I mean, that's huge because you learn so much more. And I think to know everything, it's not only fun, but it helps you become better at what you do. Not necessarily specific to that one thing. Okay, here's film stocks, here's your ASA, your ISOs, your apertures and all that. It's shutter speed. Now you're learning in editing how to piece together. I edit in my head so much, like I'm just getting it all done. And even I look down at even all the departments like AD. One day someone will come to you, and you probably know this. They'll come to you and say, "Hey, can you AD for me? I need someone." You're like, "Oh, I can't because I don't understand, but I'll give you someone else." Or you can say, "Check it out. I've actually studied and I understand, and I can do that for you." So I think I'm reached out to a lot. Do you know someone that can help me with this? Well, if you know that skill, you can do it yourself and pick up some more money. Like you said, like I don't have the patience for editing. I love that you but I know editors I can send someone to, or if someone says, can you grip this? I think I did grip work for you one day for break even. So because I understand
you had shot us, and done an amazing job shooting a couple of scenes for us and done an amazing job. And then there was a day where I was like, I'm short a guy. Yeah. And you're like, oh, come on in. I mean, that's how I was like, after shooting a film a year and a half ago, a guy called me and said, can you recommend an operator? I need a guy who can run beat cam on a pilot. And I was like, I'll do it. Went out. It ended up being the guys that did Sons of Anarchy. It was like their sister show, their whole crew, and they had a beat camera operator whose mom got sick or something. And I made some wonderful connections, had so much fun that day.
Yeah. And so what I'm finding out and what we're both going back and forth is, man, just learn everything, right? And it's fun. You'll find your place, what you like. I love camera more than anything, but I'll jump on other stuff. And I think through the book allows you to see these things, but you and I just speaking today, it's like, learn everything you can.
Yep.
Be nice to people because you never know. If you just have these fundamentals and details, you really will have longevity in this industry. And you're a guy that's done it all. So
I couldn't agree more. Not to cut you short, man. I couldn't agree more. I mean, we all have bills to pay. We have responsibility. We all have a nut that we got to cover every month. And if I'm not doing what I love or make my normal income doing, and my phone rings and someone says, I need an editor, I need a camera operator, that day rate still covers a car payment. Last time I looked, or puts groceries in my cupboard. As my dad taught me when I was very young, your groceries don't care where it came from, whether it was as an editor, an actor, or a DP, the groceries are in the cupboard, and that's all that matters.
Right. Well, what's your thing? We'll wrap it up with this. Okay. Someone once told me, one for the meal, one for the real. Right?
I thought that was you. I learned that from. I learned it from you. That's not me.
Somebody told me, but I didn't come up with that on my own. But you do. If you take certain projects, they lead to other projects. What's your philosophy in your position? Because I always say with I'm 23 years in, but I always say, like, shoot everything, just shoot everything. Like through COVID, I've done so much work through COVID because I now have the time. I'm not on one project. I can be on a ton. So what's your thoughts on working for free to get your name up, yet paying your bills? I'm very interested to see your thoughts on this.
Well, I learned a guy who's done a lot of editing with me over the years, Dave Golding, who I unfortunately can't afford or keep anymore. He's too busy. He was Zalman King's editor for 15, 20 years, Dave and his brother Nick, and they work for CBS now. And Dave and I always laugh about we talked about the new generation coming up. Dave, his stepfather won 2 Oscars. His mother, I think, won, you want to talk to an icon, his mother, I think, won 8 or 10 Emmys personally. And Dave was very connected, and his godfather was Zalman King. And Dave kind of went through a little bit of a misspent youth and lived a little bit of a wild child. And once he grew up like I did and hit his early 20s, decided it was time to get for real about his future. And he went to his stepdad and his 2 Oscars and his mom with her 8 Emmys and said, okay, I want to be in the film industry. And mom said, great. Pick up the phone. I think she called Deluxe or one of those places and hung up the phone and said, you start tomorrow after school, 3 p.m., you're sweeping the floors. They're going to not pay you. And Dave went into Deluxe, and I think he swept floors for 6 or 8 months for free at Deluxe. And he already knew how to cut. He already knew he had connections, but he didn't even bitch, piss, moan, complain. I know to this day, I know I called, great cinematographers like Philip Hearn or John Aronson over the years, and I've said, hey, I need to learn a new skill set. I need to get on a set. I need to make new connections. Are you shooting? I'll work for free. I'll bring my own lunch. I need to make new connections. And I remember Philip Hearn calling me one morning and saying, hey, I had a guy drop out. We shoot Richard Crenna, God rest him, tomorrow. I'll see you at 6 a.m. Here's the address. And you show up, and to this day, I'm still working with guys from that shoot from 1991. I mean, you just never know. I think there's abuse, and I think there's learning and making your career better. And, there are producers and filmmakers who just try to scavenger all the free help they can get. And I think that's wrong. That's an abuse of power. That's using people for IMDb credits or deferred. That's a bunch of BS. But I think when you're coming up, you want to be able to be a part of it and learn. It's like when we did Break Even, we had over 100 people that were on payroll, but we had 4 to 6 interns that we had circulating to every day from the local colleges that came in, got to work. One of them was my assistant, director's assistant. One was a second AD. One was a PA. One was helping in camera. And I think, there's a balance, but you're not going to learn unless you do it.
Right. So people that come out and they say, well, I'm not going to work unless I get paid, probably won't go very far,
Unless you have a skill set, or, it's like if you have a skill set that's of value to an industry, or a piece of equipment that we just can't live without. Well, I got 500 other people that, as John, I'm sure a lot of people through your relationships, even just going to the gym or hanging out at wherever it is you hang out, where somebody says, oh, I got a kid who wants to be in the industry here. Well, you should bring him on as a PA.
Right.
You get that phone call and email 30 times a week. It's like, okay, we're not short on help. And there are people that literally, it's like, I had a great experience. I'm helping to put together a health series for one of the major streaming networks. You're working on that, I believe, on the 30th with us. And they came to me with their game plan, and I said, you need a transcriber. I got just the person. Well, I had somebody at the community college reach out to me after a class and said, I will intern. I am looking for experience working with producers and storytellers. I won't charge. I don't want money. I want the school credit, but I want to learn the nuts and bolts of working with a team. So I went with these people doing this health series. And I said, I've got a girl who will transcribe all your 25 interviews. And in 5 days, this girl sent all the docs, all the interviews are transcribed, and now they're getting it to their editor and just rapidly sped up the process. And there are really good people like that understand how hard it is to get a foot in this industry.
Yeah.
And this girl, can't wait to hire her for real on our next project, because she's shown that she's willing to offer to help for free or as an intern. I mean, she's getting school credits. We never ask for free help. If you're going to work for free, it's for internship. If you're coming to say, I need experience on a set, I've never been on one, okay, go over and learn with them. Let's put you in Grip and Electric and you learn and be their guy, get cable, help carry things, learn. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of help out and learn and make connections. It's better than sitting at home on the internet waiting for the phone to ring.
So, yeah. And so as you're graduating film school, I think there's this thing that you would know much more than I would, but you think you're going to get out and you're going to be this director and boom, you're going to be Tarantino or whomever. And we've just discussed over this show that like
Damien Chazelle, they all think they're going to be the next.
Right. So, but we've proven through our discussion here that, man, you got to grunt it. You got to work for free. But eventually I've done that. I've done meals and reels all for 20 years and they've been bountiful, the ones. But I think you have to have an intelligent approach to reading people as well, which is another skill. Reading people, are they really going to do this for me? Or are they just, well, we got this thing coming up. If you just do this one, how many times have you and I heard that? So it's a scary business to be in because you have to be strong. And look at even actors alone. They go to audition after, no. There's like thank God I do jujitsu because it really helps me. Like kind of read people and then feel the struggle and embrace the suck and move forward. So it's not for the lighthearted. And you know this because you started before you could even speak. So, but over this time that you spent, and we'll wrap it here. Over the time that you've spent, like, what things have you learned that you can maybe bestow on us so that we can learn something to take with us, like a golden nugget over your entire career that you're like, if you know this or you understand this, like your dad told me in the middle of the desert, I was like, I can. What have you learned?
I think the most important advice that I could bestow on anybody, and I know your podcast is really geared toward the cinematographer, but I would like to think there's a lot of aspiring cinematographers that listen to it and guys who are working their way through camera. I think the most important thing is find a way for whoever your superiors are to not want to make a movie without you. And I think that alone it covers being nice, knowing the craft, knowing everything you can. I mean, John, you know as well as anybody that I've found a niche in making low budget, high output films. Well, that happens by hiring people who can wear many hats, people who don't have ego, and that all comes from people that want to make a positive mark. Like we talked about Brian earlier, and guys like you who shoot one day, you DP'd for me, you've shot, you're out there gripping, you're grabbing a still camera and taking our back, BTS stuff. I mean, those are the kind of people that I need to be around. That's the kind of person I'd like to think I am. I would just say if be everything you can be the best at it and make it so your superiors, your impact on a production is positive, where your superiors say, I don't want to make a movie without this person. I think you do that, you're going to be okay.
That's great. And from this side, it's the same thing. I've been told, like, well, what's your schedule? Because we'll wait until you're available. And you go, wow, that's what I get out of bed for. I get out of bed for people because I don't go to a set to shoot. I go to build a relationship and to bring what I can to make the director happy with what he wants to, his vision. It's commonplace. But to build relationships and just go through life making friends and being positive, call them on their birthday, just be nice to people, and you get that through doing your craft and your passion. That's really cool. So
I'll throw in one other thing that I try to do, and I always remember to say this in classes that I teach. It's really important, and you touched on it. I try to take 2 days a year, usually in like March and September. I try if I'm not busy. And I just go through my Rolodex or, my phone, whatever you keep your contacts in, and I reach out to people that I just feel that are people that, are in our industry that should remember I exist, or I want them to know that they are important to me. And all that does is it reaffirms relationships, but it also, if you ever need something, you're not just calling somebody out of the blue needing a favor. How many of us don't hear from people for like 2 years? It's, hey, John, buddy, hey, I never want to be that guy, and I don't like being the guy who gets the call. So I always try to just take a day every 6 or 7 months and just go through and just say, hey, and I make it a personal thing. Like, hey, David, I hope all is well with you and the family. I was just thinking about you the other day. Hope things are working out, during COVID. I hope you guys are safe. And it always opens up the door where when you need something, and I don't mean it to sound disingenuous, but this industry is all about helping one another and supporting the movement of being artists and trying to get talent when you can and how you can. And there's nothing worse than people feeling that they don't matter unless you need them. And I think there's just a way to navigate that. And that's another bit of advice I would give is just, there's people that are very good at being the squeaky wheel without being a pain in the ass.
Nice. And if we're just friendly, like details and nice to people, you're just being you. You're just being nice to people. You want to bring people up to another level in their life.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
So thank you, Shane Stanley.
Oh my God, man. Anytime, John, it was an honor. And I just to say that your listeners and viewers are very lucky to have somebody like you who's here doing this. I enjoy your podcast. And that's why, besides the fact that we're friends, but why I really wanted to be a part of it was because I think what you're doing is good and important too, man. So thank you.
No problem. I just want to leave something behind. When I'm long gone, I want to leave these cool stories behind, because as we go through generations of filmmakers, like Giuseppe Rotuno, I want to reach out to him. He's one of the last living Fellini guys. I want him on the show because I want to hear stories. So when we're all gone, the future generations can say, oh, check out that podcast. It was cool. They talked to Shane Stanley. That's cool. Like, I'm leaving behind a mess. I'm a hoarder. I'm leaving things behind for future generations. So thank you so much. You're amazing. Can't wait to work with you again. It's always fun. You're the man. And also, if you like hit the like button if you can, hit the subscribe button. You can follow us on Instagram. It's Cine Legends Pod. So follow us if you can. We'll build this thing up. We'll keep creating great stories. And Shane Stanley, thank you. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
You got it.